Hello, today's video is going to be last in a philosophical series. And basically, why I believe nationalism is a dangerous idea, although I'm sure a lot of you are going to have a gut adverse reaction to that concept at first. And the reason is because I highly, strongly believe that nationalism is a theme, a concept that is actually propagated by the banking elite that want a new world order, because it is a concept that can be used to divide and conquer people. And when there's only a few thousand of them and 6.8 billion of us, it is necessary for them to always divide us as much as possible. So let me present this to you before you turn this video off, before you dislike it. I'm sure there's going to be more dislikes of this video than normal, but please have an open mind just to listen to my argument before you make a decision, because that is the key sign of any person with any intellect, is that you will listen to an argument and weigh the merits of the argument before you decide whether it is wrong or it is right. And if you are just going to say, nah, I'm a nationalistic person, rah, 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 my country's the best, then there's no hope for you, because you're never going to change your mind no matter what arguments are presented to you. So here's how I'm going to sum up my problem with nationalism. It's just like all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. It's just a basic exercise in logic for anyone that is willing to exercise a brain. They'll realize that nationalism is a very dangerous concept that can easily be used to divide and conquer people that should be united instead. So when I look at nationalism, this is the way I would want all people to look at it, is that all government policies that are moral are good. So, but, or actually, let me rephrase that, because I don't think I phrased that correctly to get my point across. So all moral policies that are government policies are good, but not all government policies are moral by any stretch of the imagination. So all those government policies that are immoral, then people should be against from a morality perspective. So you cannot be nationalistic if you believe that not all government policies are moral. And I would say most government policies are not moral. So any government policy that infringes on individuals' right to make choices about their own body, to have a right to privacy, from intrusion from outside third government parties, any government policy that tries to infringe upon journalistic truth and that would imprison journalists for telling the truth is immoral. Any government policies that look to censor dissent, when there's no hate speech, when there's no hate mongering, fear mongering going on, when people are just telling the reality, and then there's government policies to basically infringe upon people's ability to disseminate truthful information through the internet, through Twitter, whatever, that is immoral. Any type of censorship where people, or even where people advocate something that you don't disagree with, as long as there's no violence being propagated, no hate being propagated, that should be allowed to persist. As that is what freedom is about. Freedom is about having dissent, whether you agree with it or not, as long as there's nothing being propagated that's highly unethical, highly immoral. We have enough things that are unethical and immoral in the banking industry that are allowed to persist and flourish and supported by the government, supported by regulatory agencies. So that's why I say nationalism is something, it's a concept for the sheep, for those that cannot use their own brain to come to an independent thought, that need someone above them saying, you need to believe this, and they're just going to suck it up like a sponge. And I don't know, they might as well even be afflicted with bacterial meningitis and have a non-functional brainstem, and because they're not using their brain if they're just going to adhere to a nationalistic policy. When we look at even from the standpoint of the United States, you will see right now, whether you agree or not, that states have the right to succeed from the U.S. because you have a lot of people now, there's a lot of controversy going on because I think like Texas has a petition where they have well over, I believe, 100,000 signatures from people that want to secede. So then you have other Americans barging in, whether you agree or disagree with this, they should be allowed to have that opinion. So you have other Americans barging in and saying that these Americans that signed the petition should be deported, which is ridiculous because that is just a sign of ignorance because people don't even know the history. Because for all intents and purposes, well, first of all, everyone that is, a lot of people that are saying this are white Europeans, which means you aren't even an indigenous person in the United States. Because if you look at the history of the U.S., it's probably the only country it's the only country I can think of that the top of my head that has almost completely eradicated those that were indigenous to this population. Because I don't know what the Native American population is off the top of my head, but it's probably like 3%. But it used to be 100%, right? So then you had European settlers come over, and through war, through government policy, through disease, they eradicated most of the indigenous people here. And so everyone is basically an immigrant. So anyone that would say, like, go back to your country is an idiot. That's the only way to say that. That is like a white European, because you're saying that to yourself because you came from France, Germany, the UK, Croatia, wherever you came from. That this was not your native land. And this is, even though I'm American, it was not my native land either. So the only people that really have a right to say that are people that are Cherokee, Sioux, Navajo, any other Native American tribe. But the problem we have, I digress a little, the problem I have with the whole dissent thing is that people don't know their history, because for all intents and purposes, okay, after the white Europeans came in and settled in America, they were still under the rule of King George and Britain. So what did the 13 colonies do? 13 colonies seceded, basically. There's a revolution, but that's what they meant. They seceded, or at least historically we're told they seceded, although we know that the banking and monetary system still was retained under the power of the Rothschilds. So there really was not a true revolution, because the control of the money remained under European power. But people celebrate Independence Day, the 4th of July, even though there's no true independence in America in 1776. But people don't know their history, because they're saying no one should have the right in America to broach the subject if they're unhappy with the ruling authorities, even though that's what the 13 original colonies tried to do to form the United States of America. Otherwise, America would still be under the rule of, say, the Queen of England right now. So, know your history and just try to use your brain every once in a while. If you're one of the people, I apologize if you're not one of these people, but there seems to be a lot more of these people than there are not. So that's just part of the message for today. But here's why I'm saying nationalism is a very, very dangerous concept, because at the core of this concept is actually what makes the neo-Nazi Golden Dawn Party in Greece possible. I think that's what it's called, the Golden Dawn Party. It's what made Hitler's rise and his success in the Third Reich in Germany possible, was this whole nationalistic pride that we are the better race and we are the better people, and that all other people that don't look like us, that don't have the same skin color, should be purged. Now, you might say that is extreme, so let me explain my point here. Because what made me think of this is actually that movie, not the movie, but the reality TV series Shark Tank. Because I've seen on this show a couple of people that their businesses were not prospering because of the refusal to go overseas, where they could basically source labor and manufacture their inventions or whatever they are pitching to the angel investors on Shark Tank, or to the sharks as they call themselves. And it was their desire, because they said they wanted to basically help their own people, meaning people in the United States. So So they were willing to slash their gross margins, their net margins, and their profits, and they're suffering, and they couldn't basically get out of the muck and the mire and rise up to a prosperous business because their margins were being extremely hurt because they're unwilling to go overseas to manufacture whatever their invention was at a fraction of the cost it cost in the United States. So a lot of these people, in fact, the shark said, you need to do this, and if you do this, maybe we'll be on board. And I've seen at least 2 people say, no, I will not do this. I want to really help my own people. And so the sharks gave them no money. So at the core of this, what is really interesting, right, is that there are no white people in America that is not an immigrant. If you are not from the Cherokee tribe, the Sioux tribe, the Hopi tribe, the Navajo tribe, or if your blood is not Native American, then you are an immigrant, okay? So you came from Europe, okay? So what's really interesting is that a lot of this nationalistic fervor is what the bankers are using to divide and conquer, because a lot of people say, I don't want to take my labor or source my parts from China. Notice that's like, because of the whole Tim Geithner, China's causing all our problems, China needs to let the UN strengthen, even though it's the failed US dollar, wreck the dollar policy that is hurting Americans. Like, he's been able to use his nationalistic fervor to divert people's attention away from the fact that central banks are actually responsible for people outsourcing to other countries. So the Fed Reserve is responsible for Americans having to outsource from other countries. And if you don't understand that, then you need to go research monetary policy, because it is too complicated for me really to go into detail here within a 10-minute video or whatnot to explain to you why that is the case. But I guarantee you, you can find congressmen in the early 1900s that were telling you that the Fed Reserve is responsible for basically outsourcing, and the fact that American manufacturers have to look overseas. It has to do with monetary policy, so please research that. But the other interesting part is, I guarantee you that a lot of these people that said, oh, I don't want to outsource from China, but perhaps if the cheap labor market was in France, they might do it. Now think about that. Think about why that is. Okay, so they say France might be okay to outsource, might be okay to outsource to, say, Holland if there's cheap labor, cheap manufacturing in Holland instead of China. But the crazy thing is, or maybe these people still wouldn't. That would be even more mind-blowing if they wouldn't say it was in French, because maybe their parents are even French, or they have French blood in them, or they have German blood in them, or wherever in Europe it may be, and they'd be unwilling to outsource because they look at it as foreign when they have immigrant blood of that very ethnicity within them. So that is a crazy thing, because what they are saying in reality, okay, say that you are helping to employ people in a developing country. They are saying that basically, unless it is friends or family, I can understand. If you're employing friends or family, okay, you always want to help out your friends or family. But there is no reason to desire to helping out a stranger and thinking that that is more noble just because they have the same skin color or are of the same race than you. Because then you're stepping into boundaries of racism. If you're saying that it is better just to help a complete stranger that has the same skin color as you than someone that is Asian, then you're saying the person that is Asian, their life is less valuable, is less noble to help that person than it is to help a person of your same skin color. So that's why I basically said you're venturing into very, very dangerous territory here, because you're starting to get into the nationalistic, neo-Nazi, golden dawn overtones in Greece. You're starting to get into the Third Reich, Germany Nazi mentality, that it is better to support someone of the same skin color and race than is more noble to do that than someone that is of a different skin color. Now, what's really interesting is that during the course of my lifetime, I've met engineers, and I don't know if this is true, but I'm telling you, this is what they told me, who work for engineering firms, that said that they will value, actually their standards of safety for building bridges in third world countries is less than in a first world country, because they do a cost-benefit analysis, and the loss of human life in a developing country, they basically value that less than the loss of a life that someone that lives in a developed country. Now that is just sick. That is actually what is wrong with society today, is that we can value other people's lives less because of their skin color, or less because of their income, which is even crazier. You're saying someone's life who is poor is worth less than the life of a rich man or woman. Now there is one important topic I haven't covered yet, and that is when people don't want to outsource the purchasing of parts that are much cheaper in another country, or they don't want to outsource their labor. It's because the desire to create jobs at home, and I do understand that, and I think that is 100% agree with that. That is a noble thing, because if the country you live in, if the economy sucks and there are no jobs and people are suffering, then of course you want to create jobs and help the economy in the geographical area where you live. That makes absolute sense to me. But you can't confuse that with the fact that if you refuse to give your business to someone else just because they're of a different skin color or a different race, and that is necessary for your company to survive, then what good are you really doing for people in your own community? None. You know why? Because in 3 months, your business will go bankrupt. You'll be out of, you'll have to file basically for bankruptcy, and the people you gave hope to was a false hope, because in 3 months, 6 months, they'll be out of a job, back on the streets again. Whereas you could have avoided all that by ensuring in the short term that you did the right things to make your company survive. Even if that, God forbid, involved giving business to a foreign entity. But what does that allow you to do in the big picture? It allows your business not only to survive, but to prosper and to grow, and to, most importantly, to expand. And when you can expand, then you can bring in people from your community, create jobs, give them jobs long term, not short term, where everything is a constant struggle day to day. You can give them jobs long term. So that is just something just to think about, why this is, why we're so hell-bent against working with people that don't look like us or that aren't the same skin color. And that's why I have been on this philosophical speech about why nationalism is a dangerous concept, because it has nothing to do with morality. Think about if you made every decision from a moral standpoint. Is it right or is it wrong? Is it good to help people no matter what their skin color? Is it good in the long run, even if I'm not helping people in my community in the short term, giving business to others, so then I can create jobs long term within my community? Does that make more sense from a logical perspective? So even from a logical sense, you look at things through the lens of two things only, not through nationalism, not through race, not through skin color. One, morality, two, logic. And I think you'll find that a lot of your opinions will greatly change. It is exactly this mentality, and this is why I say it is this mentality that is actually disseminated, that is probably funded even by elite bankers that want this new world order, because it is very successful in being divisive, and is very successful in actually even leading to war, because it's this mentality that says, oh, I don't care that we killed 1 million Iraqi women and children and innocent civilians during the course of our engagement in Iraq, because Iraqi lives are worth less than American lives, which is crazy, because every innocent Iraqi civilian, woman, man, child that dies has perhaps a surviving brother, sister, nephew, niece, mother, father, grandmother, grandfather that grieves the loss of that person just as much as anyone else of any other skin color. But I'm sure every one of you that is watching this video knows someone that thinks like that. It says, oh, I don't care less if, as long as American lives are not lost. And even the media perpetuates this. Because I remember when there's a terrorist incident in Bali, can't remember how long ago it was, but it was one in which hundreds of people died. But in the US, they only reported, because most of the people that died were Australian, they only reported on the handful of Americans that died, because that is all that is important in America. It's just American deaths. So the hundreds of Australians we look the other way. And we get this time and time again. Like at schools, probably most young kids in America know that 58,000 US soldiers died in the Vietnam War. But they're probably ignorant that a couple million, 2 to 3 million Vietnamese died. Because again, Vietnamese lives are marginal. And they're marginalized is not important as compared to American lives. And that is, again, is a very, very dangerous concept that we get into. So it is the same concept even in politics, right? When we have Republicans and Democrats, there's always a push from the New World Order, those that want it, to divide us, right? So that's why, you know, we shouldn't even have party lines. I've heard this argument. I think it's a very relevant argument, because a lot of people just blindly vote across party lines and don't even know what the candidates were about. But if all candidates, say in the presidency, were stripped of their affiliations, their party affiliations, then people would actually have to research and find out what these candidates are about, rather than just blindly voting by party line. And it is the same thing when black people just support black candidates in power because they're black. It makes absolutely no sense at all. Or that goes across like every race. Like white people will support white people just because they're white. Asians will support Asian people just because they're white. And in Asians, it even like is even more delineated. It's like Koreans will support Koreans, or Chinese will support Chinese only. And that is like the most idiotic thing ever, because what people should be judging everything by, right, as far as who they give work to, who they help, is just morality. Is it right or is it wrong? So if you're helping someone whose skin color is brown or yellow versus white, or white versus red, is it a noble act? That's the only thing that should come into play. Is it noble, and is it moral? Is it the right thing to do? And if it is, then skin color should play no part in your decision, whether it comes to labor employment, whether it comes to politics. That's the only thing that matters, is morality. Is it right or is it wrong? So the problem why people don't think like this anymore, it comes down again to the dumbing down of America through education. And again, I'll put the link below if you have not read it, that I believe the fault is that people do not critically think. And because people do not critically think, we just believe like sheep what we are told to believe and told to think. So hopefully we can affect a paradigm shift in people's thinking. Because if you go and you read that link, because I'll put the PDF to Charlotte Iserbyt's groundbreaking book on the dumbing down of America, how she discovered when she was Secretary of Education that, you know, she came upon government documents that basically said the purpose of institutional academia was to strip away the critical thinking skills of young men and women so they'd be obedient to those that wish to propagate and put forth the principles and the goals and mission of the New World Order. So if you go check out that book, you'll even find that even in sciences, like mathematics, that the critical thinking processes were stripped, and that mathematics and sciences were taught in a completely different manner 100 years ago. So I think what we need to do, and what could dissolve all this divisiveness so people can be unified in creating a better world instead of uh, falling victim to these ploys to divide and conquer us is to start making their decisions by morality, by what is right and what is wrong. Not by political affiliations, not by skin color, not by race. Just think about what is right and what is wrong. And you will find that a lot of your thinking will absolutely shift on a lot of key issues where you had one opinion, you will find it will morph into a completely different opinion if you judge things by morality. Okay, so thanks for watching. That's the last in this series, so I hope that some of you have been able to glean just a little bit of understanding of the concepts I'm trying to put forth. And hopefully you guys out there that watch this will talk about this. And thanks for watching again. Until next time, take care.